A long time ago, there was a small village between the mountains and sandy paths. There lived a young man named Horace. Horace was neither very rich nor very poor. He earned his living by cutting wood and sometimes doing small jobs for people. The villagers were troubled by one of his habits. He did every task very carefully and thoughtfully. If he found a lost item on the road, instead of keeping it for himself, he would go searching for its owner. If an old person needed help, he would leave his own work and help them first. Some people in the village used to say, "This boy is too simple." Others would say, "The world runs on cleverness, not too much honesty." Horace would only smile. One day, early in the morning, he went far from the village to cut wood. The sun was slowly rising higher. The path was more deserted than usual that day. After walking for several hours, he felt thirsty. He thought he should rest for a while. Nearby, there was an old tree, and he sat beneath it. But suddenly, he saw sand rising in the distance. At first, he thought maybe it was a traveler. Then he noticed something strange. Through the sand, a camel was running quickly, but there was no person with it. Harris stood up. The camel was running here and there as if it had been frightened by something. After a few moments, it stopped near the tree. Harris slowly walked toward it. A beautiful cloth was tied around the camel's body, and two large sacks were hanging on its back. Harris looked around, but no one could be seen anywhere in the distance. He took a few steps back, and a thought came into his mind. Maybe some caravan has fallen victim to robbers. Then another thought, or maybe the owner is somewhere nearby. At that very moment, a voice came from behind. "Horace!" He turned and saw two men from the village who had come to collect firewood. Both of them ran toward him. One of them looked at the camel in surprise and said, "Where did this come from, all alone?" Horace said, "I do not know." The other man looked at the sacks and said softly, "Open it and see." Horace remained silent. The man reached forward himself and opened the edge of the sack. In the very next moment, his eyes widened. These are gold coins." Horace looked at him in shock. He opened the second sack. It too was filled with shining gold coins. For a few moments, silence spread over the place. Then both men looked at each other and smiled. The first man said, "Horace, today your fate has changed." The second said, "An opportunity like this does not come again and again." Horace remained silent while looking at the camel. Then he said softly, "This is not my fortune. This is someone else's trust." Both men burst into laughter. "A trust? Even after seeing so much gold, you're still saying the same thing?" Horace looked at the coins once again, then raised his eyes toward the sky. He did not know that a small thing tied with the camel had still not been noticed by anyone, and that thing was going to change everything. After a few days, Horace's eyes were still fixed on the camel. Both men kept looking again and again at the coins, as if their eyes had stopped there. One man said, "Horace, just think, with this much gold you will never have to cut wood for the rest of your life." The other said, "If the owner was nearby, he would have arrived by now. This is the desert. Here, whatever you find becomes your fate." Horace listened to them, but gave no reply. He held the camel's rope and started walking from behind. One of the men asked, "Where are you going?" Horace gave a short answer, "To the village." Throughout the journey, both men kept trying to convince him. Sometimes they said, "Keep half and divide the rest." Sometimes they said, "Do not tell anyone about it." But Horace remained silent. When he reached the village, news of the camel spread like fire. Within moments, people started gathering. Some eyes were fixed on the camel and some on the coins. An old man stepped forward and said, "Son, this matter is not simple. This belongs to someone. The owner should be searched for."
But a man from the crowd immediately said if the owner was alive, he would already be searching for his camel. Some people began agreeing with him. One man said, "Horace, you are too simple. The world does not work like this." Horace said only one thing: "What is not mine is not mine." People began looking at each other silently.
That night, Horace sat outside his house with the camel tied nearby. He was not thinking about the coins. Only one question was in his mind. Where had this camel come from? Most of the night had passed and the wind was blowing softly. Suddenly, the camel became restless. It kept moving its neck again and again. Horace stood up and walked closer to it. He thought maybe the camel was hungry. He moved his hand near its neck. Suddenly, his finger touched something. He looked carefully beneath the cloth under the camel's neck. A small leather pouch was tied there. Horace stopped immediately and opened the pouch. Inside it was a piece of paper, but it was not an ordinary paper. Some words had been written on it in great haste. On the paper, it was written, "If this camel is found, then immediately—" The next words had been erased. Horace narrowed his eyes and tried to read it again, but the rest of the writing had become blurred. Only one word at the end could still be read clearly. "Pass," Horace said softly. "Pass." He began thinking. There were many routes near his village, but there was also a dangerous mountain pass where very few people traveled. At that moment, he remembered something from earlier in the day. When the camel was found, it had come from that same direction. Horace immediately raised his head and looked at the camel, then said quietly, "It seems you still have not reached your destination." And he had no idea that the journey he was about to begin the next morning held something far more valuable than gold coins waiting for him. Before sunrise the next morning, Horace woke up. He had spent the entire night thinking about that paper again and again. The same word echoed in his mind: pass. He gave water to the camel and began preparing to leave. Meanwhile, voices started coming from outside. A few villagers had gathered. One man asked in surprise, "Are you really going?" Horace replied, "Yes." Another man laughed and said, "So much gold is standing in front of you, and you are going out to search for its owner?" Horace answered, "If today I keep someone else's trust, then tomorrow my own belongings can also be taken from me." Some people fell silent, but two men immediately stepped forward. They were the same men who had been with him in the desert. They said, "We will come with you too." Horace looked at them and nodded. The journey began. The path was not easy. The sun kept rising higher and the ground was becoming hotter. Many hours passed. Then, in the distance between the mountains, a narrow route appeared. Horace stopped and said, "This must be the pass." They started moving forward. The farther they went, the more deserted the path became. Suddenly, Horace's eyes fell on the ground. He bent down. There were marks in the sand, hoof prints of horses, and alongside them were marks of something being dragged. His face became serious. One man asked, "What happened?" Horace said softly, "This path was not empty." A few steps ahead, there was a torn piece of cloth, then a broken piece of wood. Then, after a few more steps, a water bag was lying on the ground. Now, everyone's expressions had changed. It looked as if something had happened there. They moved forward quickly. Then suddenly, Horace stopped. His breath stopped for a moment. In front of a large rock, a man was lying on the ground. His clothes were covered with dust. His face was pale, and he was barely breathing. Horace immediately ran toward him and gave him water. After a few moments, the man slowly opened his eyes. His gaze first fell on Horace, and then suddenly on the camel. His eyes widened, and his lips began trembling. He said in a weak voice, This is my camel."
Horace became silent. Tears filled the man's eyes, and in a shaking voice he said, "I thought everything was finished." But at that very moment, Horace noticed something strange. There was a mark on the man's wrist, and the exact same mark was engraved on the leather pouch found beneath the camel's neck. Horace took out the pouch. Now, for the first time, he realized that this was not only a trust of gold coins. Behind it, there was something much greater hidden, and the real secret had yet to be revealed.
Horace immediately placed the leather pouch in front of the man. The man took it with trembling hands. His eyes remained fixed on it for a few moments. Then he took a deep breath and said softly, "I thought this would never be returned." Horace asked, "What is inside it?" The man remained silent for a few moments, then said, "There is not only gold in this." Horace looked at him in surprise. The man reached inside the pouch and took out a folded paper. "This is my father's will." Horace became silent, and the man slowly began to speak. "My father was a merchant before he died. He said that wealth does not make a person great. While handing over all his wealth to me, he placed one condition." Harris listened carefully. The man continued. He said, "This wealth should only be used with a person who understands the value of trust." Harris asked in surprise, "But how would you know?" Tears filled the man's eyes, and he said, "I did not know. Then, during the journey, we were attacked. I became separated from my companions. The camel ran away. I was certain that whoever found it would keep the gold." He fell silent for a moment, then looked at Harris. "But you did not do that." The two men standing behind them, who had traveled the whole journey together, remained silent. Shame was clearly visible on their faces. The man stood up. He placed the sacks of gold coins immediately in front of Harris. Harris stepped back and said, "No, this is your wealth." The man smiled and said, "Not from today." Harris looked at him in surprise. The man said, "My father used to say that an honest person never remains empty-handed. I'm not giving you gold, I'm giving you a responsibility." A few months later, Harris did not build a palace for himself with that wealth. Instead, he built water wells for travelers, started helping the poor, and created a place for orphan children. And the same people who once laughed at him were now telling their children, "If in life you ever have to choose between trust and greed, then become like Harris." Because sometimes gold does not come into a person's hands. Sometimes a test comes into their hands, and the result of every test is not shown by the world immediately, but Allah surely shows it. This story teaches us that honesty and trustworthiness are the greatest wealth a person can have. Temporary greed may seem beneficial, but true success lies in patience, truth, and kindness. The person who protects the rights of others, Allah blesses that person with both honor and sustenance. If you enjoyed the video, then subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so every new video reaches you first. Tell us in the comments how you liked the video and leave your kind comments. We will meet again in a new video. Until then, thank you.